This program is brought to you by Toyota. The tranquil atmosphere in the Northwest Province was transformed as the best South African racing crews made their way to the Baberspan 500 off-road race on March 19th. As it was only the second event of this year's off-road racing calendar, teams still had teething problems with new vehicles and crews. The large field of entries confirmed the importance of this race. It's been around for 21 years and is known to be grueling and very, very tough. Amongst the other top contenders were the Toyota dealer teams with brand new vehicles and plenty of confidence.
I'm looking very forward to this race because this is my special one. It suits our vehicle very nice, and we've won it three years in a row, except for last year. We ended second overall year.
Well, we got a new van, a new double cab, and we tried it before, and we're still in a growing process, and we plan to finish the event.
But we aim just to finish, you know. It's a new sponsor, and if we can get a finish in the top 3 or 4, then we'll be happy.
Skulkin, on your side, what do you see as a challenge?
Well, that's quite a difference to change from quads to cars, but I anticipate it being a lot easier as far as breakdowns and whatever you're concerned. So we're going to go out there, we'll give it a bash. We'll take it time trial and really take it from there and see how the car's handling, and maybe we'll be there tomorrow.
You know, we in South Africa are very lucky. We can go to any part of South Africa with our South African Championship, and it'll be some part of the Paris-Dakar.
The first time the competitors could get down to serious racing was with the time trials. And joining us on this program is former South African multiple off-road champion Kenny Scholthammer.
Thanks, Glenn. The purpose of the time trial is to establish your start positions for Saturday's race and to find out what the conditions will really be like for Saturday's racing, and to establish where your competition lies. For every event is different, so it'll be nice to know where your competition is going to be after the time trial.
So most of the competitors don't just use it to get great times and say, hey, I want to be really up front of the starters. They want to have a good look around in the time trial.
Oh, most definitely. They have races within races. So, you know, every category must compete against each other, and they establish where the guys are, and Saturday's race start time comes, and the guys basically pace themselves off one another.
The time trials posed a few problems as Newton Love and Colin Potter went off the track before finding the route markers. With Paolo Piazzamuzzo and Stratford Fucht hot on their heels, other competitors also wasted valuable time on this section of the route. Johan Gerber and Kwitsia Labaskachny in their Raconic Chef made no mistakes and were chasing hard after the pack ahead. In the bike section, the large field of 101 entrants prepared for the time trials. Not the toughest of terrain, Kenny, but I guess you have to keep your wits about you.
Most definitely, Glenn. You'll see these guys start much closer together than the motor vehicles, which means that they're riding in dust consistently. And there are a lot of bad rocks out there, so you have to have your wits about you.
Quentin Milton on his Kawasaki demonstrates that the bikes had no problems with the road conditions as he speeds across the millie fields. Behind him, Rian van Niekerk on his KTM had to contend with the terrible dust factor. In the quad section, Christophe van der Merwe on his Banshee was fortunate to start the time trials first, which gave him a distinct advantage against the dust.
First time Christo will be up against Vickers on the Gulwaz Yamaha this year, so it'll be very interesting to see the outcome.
In the open category, the blue Gulwaz Blonde quad driven by Vickers van Deventer is an awesome sight as it speeds through the dust and was definitely one of the quads to look out for over the 500-kilometer stretch of the main race. The last section of the 50-kilometer time trials became a little hectic with the faster vehicles having to contend with slower traffic. Kenny, any unwritten rules there?
Glenn, this is where you just put it. You've got to set a quick time for your start tomorrow morning, otherwise you're going to be in the dust.
Gary Heiner and his mighty mag seemed unperturbed as he approached the finish, with one wheel missing. And the Vodacom Pajero team of the internationally experienced Neil Woolrich and co-driver Paul Vermaak were pleased with their performance at the time trials. The officials clocked in the finishing times of all entrants, and this vital information would determine all the starting positions and times for the main race. Back in the pits, maintenance crews worked flat out in the limited time to ensure that vehicles were ready for the big day before being impounded for the night.
Very rough out there, and there's quite a lot of dongas, but in short wheelbase is obviously quite an airy motor car to keep on the track. But I anticipate a good day tomorrow. I don't expect any problems.
It's a very fast time trial today. The car ran like a dream. Production vehicles, as you know, it is very competitive. But we're in with a chance for tomorrow. Well, we hope so, as long as the car stays together.
There's a pace you've got to go at, and you've got to go at the pace of the car, that you don't break the car and yet you're fast enough to stay with the guys. This is a particularly old car. It's been running for 5 years in South Africa and was running a good couple of years in the States. So it's really not a high-tech car, but it's a very well-balanced car.
It really is a finishing sport. Most guys, that's the ultimate goal, is to get to the end. Yeah? It's not really where you come. That's almost luck sometimes in this game. You come across some dongas and so on, and you can just really put your foot down and go straight over them, and the suspension does all the work for you. It is about how fast you can go, because it's a race. You know, while you're going along a fence or something, that's when you really notice the speeds you're doing, because you see these fence poles flying past you. And it's also quite a strange sensation going through the millie fields for a long period of time. It almost gives you like a tunnel vision. You're continually seeing these millies, and you're trying to concentrate on the road ahead of you. And it's hell of a good fun at the end of the day.
With rain clouds looming, the biggest question of the Baberspan 500 was, what's the weather going to do?
Baberspan is known. Today it's 35 degrees, and tonight the clouds open up, and tomorrow we've got a mud bath.
You know, it's something else when you're coming along and you see the fence half underwater, so you know how deep it is, and it can change, but you know, we don't know what the weather's going to do. They say no rain.
Back at the campsite, with Bryce looking very promising, various teams were debating what would happen the next day.
Well, this is the first national that I'm going to be racing, so it was a bit of a team effort between amongst us here, and we decided, well, let's go for it.
We all ride together, we all from the same company, and we meet our guys, we all, you know, the nationals, the regionals, the club events, we're always together, and we see who can beat who.
My major rival this whole season of racing, which I think I can talk for Willie as well, is Cornell. And that's our rival. We're going to beat Cornell, and that's what we want to do. We know he's the fastest, and he rides better, quite a lot better than both of us. So we'll see what happens at the end of the season.
So at least the two of you maybe have a message for him.
Hopefully he gets stuck tomorrow, or
Hopefully none of that bad luck that's been wished upon me will come true.
With the last rays of the sun bringing a close to a frantic day, all competitors prepared for a good meal and an early night before the big day. 6 a.m. on race day, and the first to set off was Archie Reneker and Robin Houghton. Henry Kirsten and Renier Justus started close on their heels, followed out by the rest of the pack.
The start is 30 seconds intervals, which gives the guys a dust allowance, which the times are recalculated at the end of the race, which means that the guys first on the road are not necessarily the guys that are going to win the race. It is an advantage to start later on sometimes, as the marking isn't really up to scratch, which we found in this race.
With the early morning sun rising and making it easier to find the road, came the conflicting problem of decreased visibility from the dust.
Well, as there's no wind in the early morning and you're driving into the sun, it really does tend to be a problem.
Vickers van Deventer set the pace at the time trials, which gave him an edge in leading the quad pack on race day. Johan Lotter on his Yamaha set off second, chasing after Vickers, with Mark Breckel from the Brasco refrigeration team close behind. Christo van der Merwe from the Johannesburg Yamaha team on his Banshee got off in 4th position, having his work cut out to catch the quads ahead of him. Jacques Struwik set off in his Honda 3 minutes and 41 seconds behind the leading quad. Only a 2-second difference between Errol Dalton on his Honda and Alfie Cox and Carl LaRue on their KTMs in the bike section. 1 minute and 35 seconds after the first 3 bikes, Grant Bloomfield, Jeremy Davies and Graham McLachlan set off. The overall distance of the race is 500 k's, 2 laps of 250. The first lap started at Baberspan, went off to Vryhof and back. The second lap from Baberspan went up to Setlagole and back down to the original starting point. Within the first 70 kilometers of the first lap, the field had become dispersed. Kenny, settling in time, very important here?
Yeah, the race begins to develop and you find yourself a nice pace that you're comfortable with and you find where the opposition is. So you settle in there.
But unfortunately for Vic Varker and Dion de Kock in their VW, the race had already taken its toll.
We just got first and second at the moment.
Are you carrying on?
Well, we see if we can get this, if we can get a third gear, we'll carry on. But first and second is a little bit tough.
Lying behind the vehicles, the quads were making up good time on the expansive long stretches of road. Henry Kirsten and Renier Juster in their race code kept up with the leaders, with Arpi Reinecker and Robin Houghton close behind them. Tony and Mandy Yo in their Sabat Land Rover had made up excellent time after starting in the morning with a 13-minute lapse. Billy Bond and Graham Newton in their Sandmaster were going strong, even after losing their intercom with each other and having to rely on hand signals for navigation. But in the lead were Kasi Coetzee and Piet Swanepoel in their Hilux, followed by the Ford of Paolo Piazzamuzzo and Stratford Ford. Kenny, noticeable by their absence here, the father and son combination of the Chepex.
Yeah, Glenn, they were right up there. Unfortunately, they had a coming together with Henry Kirsten in the race cars due to the dust and the marking they were looking.
With the vehicles moving towards the halfway mark on lap 1, the quads started to move rapidly up the field. Race favourite Vickers van Deventer on his Gauloise Blonde Yamaha was stepping up the pace in the front, enjoying the dry, dusty conditions, which resembled some of the sections he'd encountered on the Paris-Dakar race. Behind Vickers, Johan van Lille on his Yamaha was making good time, considering his 3-minute disadvantage at the starting point. As expected, the first bike to reach the halfway mark was the KTM of Alfie Cox. But even though Alfie was setting an incredibly fast pace, Errol Dalton was determined not to let Alfie out of his sight. Kenny, Alfie Cox very much the hero now, and everybody gunning for him these days more than ever.
Yeah, he's the guys are looking to knock him off his perch, but he's so good at the moment, the guys really have to have their work cut out to try and beat him.
And the whole Paris-Dakar thing, he's like a real bigger hero than ever before now.
He's a cult figure now. Here you'll see how difficult it is for a bike to actually pass somebody on the route. This quad is sort of 50% slower than the bike, but the bike has to leave the route normally to pass, and so being with the car as well. So these guys really, if they hit something, they're going to be in trouble.
The temperature reached a high of 35 degrees as the first lap was completed back at Baberspan. The Toyota dealer team of Arpi Reinecker and Robin Houghton made it to the fuel stop first, but all was not well with their vehicle.
Not so good. Alternator lights coming off. Yeah.
With minutes ticking by and an electrical fault that had to be found and repaired, the other Toyota team of Kasi Coetzee appeared to be in much better shape.
It's fine. Still halfway,
After a speedy refuel, Kasi Coetzee and navigator Piet Swanepoel were back on the road. The monstrous Ford, in great condition, pulled in to refuel, but the Pennzoil Land Rover of Cliff Barker and Heinrich Latterhan had its fair share of problems.
flat wheel, went up to fourth, and I don't know where we are now. But we got a flat wheel, and now we've lost our cycle. Otherwise, fine.
With vehicles coming in rapidly through the pit stop, there was still frantic activity at the Toyota dealer pit, trying to rectify that problem without losing too much precious time. At the Gauloise Blonde pits, Vickers van Deventer seemed to be in better shape than his machine and was enjoying the fast pace of the race.
Very fast. Very, very fast. The grass is very long.
Hot on Vickers's heels, Christo van der Merwe on his Banshee, giving the Paris-Dakar hero a good run. In third place, Paul Chomsa had made up a few places from his 7th starting position in the morning. Bike number 500, the KTM of Alfie Cox, wasted no time at the refueling pit stop as he had Errol Dalton on his Honda breathing down his neck.
Right, Glenn, you'll see that some of these guys have got bigger fuel tanks than the others. And in fact, Errol apparently was missing out at every second fuel stop. So he was doing 160 kilometers instead of the regular 80 that most of the guys with the small tanks.
But the motorcycles, unlike the cars, get to refuel far more often.
Oh, yes, yes. Well, they have to. Unless you're on a 4-stroke where you can possibly do the 250.
Carl Leroux on his KTM here was also right up there with the top 2 bikes, but the heat of the day was definitely taking its toll. That's the nature of the Baberspan 500, testing all the competitors to the limit.
Yes, it's been around for many, many years. It's one of the older races on the calendar, and I think it's got a bit of a reputation, as you can see from the entry. A lot of people like coming down here.
Halfway mark, still 250 kilometers to go. I'm sure that we'll find that the more production-based vehicles and more reliable vehicles will come to the fore.
While R.P. Reinecker and Robin Houghton got their vehicle back on the road, the Pennzoil Products Land Rover of Cliff Barker and Heinrich Lattergan ran into another spot of bother.
I don't know, it just died. No power.
These things are frustrating, but Cliff's an old warhorse, and I'm sure he'll be able to sort it out. He's very technical.
Still leading the quads well into the second lap, Vickers van Deventer performing superbly and chasing hard after the leaders was Mark Breckel. Right up front, Kasi Kutsir and Pete Swanepoel making good headway leading the vehicles category. As the day progressed, with the terrain taking its toll on the vehicles, the important point for the drivers was to keep to the roads and not to take unnecessary risks. Kenny, I guess when the guys are this far into the event, they can sort of slacken off a bit and lose concentration?
Not at all, Glenn. This is when you must concentrate. The guys do make mistakes at this stage. They're starting to get tired, and they've been on the road since 6 in the morning, and this is when you can actually win or lose the race.
As Jannie Buerter and Andre Carlson found out in their Nissan. The roads becoming very narrow in certain places, important to find the safest place to overtake the slower traffic. Again, Kenny, you've got to pick the right moment. You don't want to go this far and blow it.
It's quite easy to make mistakes at this stage. You saw where Bevan Bertolf just passed there. There could have been a dongo around the corner, so you really do have to select where you're going to pass. You can't just go blind.
At one of the last major obstacles before the end of the race, the crowds gathered to support new leader Neil Woolrich and Paul Vermaak in their Pajero.
Isn't it fantastic to see the guys in the T1 vehicle that actually competed in the Dakar production vehicle, and they're now leading the category in the Class T.
After the loss of 43 minutes caused by electrical problems, R.P. Reinecker and Robin Houghton made up incredible time to find themselves just ahead of Richard Carolyn in his Raceco. Log leaders in the Class A section, Greg Harvey and Boy Stone, followed closely behind Richard Carolyn, with the Ford of Paolo Piazzamuzzo and Stratford Fucht in 5th position, with about 30 kilometers to go to the finish. The short wheelbase Sabat Land Rover, driven by Tony and Mandy Yo with its 2.8-litre BMW engine, looked very strong in 6th overall. Jens van Rensburg and Willy Mengel's Chev Nomad appeared to be coming apart at the seams, but still hung in there. Leading the Class E division, Karel van Vuren and Koffie Versveld in their Toyota Hilux had a successful day's racing and got through this donga with ease. Another Toyota Hilux driven by Hein Hrobelaar and Charles Volmerans led the Class G division, showing what they're made of. As usual, a tremendously fast race for Alfie Cox. He appeared not long after the main vehicles in the event. One of the big upsets on the day was when Christo van der Merwe took the lead in the quad section after Vickers van Deventer broke an axle, forcing him to fall back.
Yeah, but typical of Vickers, he made a plan, and he finished later on in the event, late in the afternoon.
Still in hot pursuit of Alfie Cox, leading in the open class was Errol Dalton on his Honda, who was also leading the 250cc division. Fighting for third and fourth place behind Errol was Grant Bloomfield and Jeremy Davies. More than 16 minutes behind Christo van der Merwe was Jacques Struwik on his Honda Quad. After a problem-free day, the TSW racing team, Colin and Derek Frankenberg in their Range Rover, maintained a good 5th position in their class. But the saying, "it's not over till it's over," became a harsh reality for Louis Boshoff as his Polaris broke down 30 k's from the finish.
Very tough. There's a whole lot of open sections, and the road is quite nice. It's a pity there ain't rain.
But there was always a helping hand on standby to tow the vanquished back to the finish line. For Neil Woolridge and Paul Vermaak, their triumphant arrival at the finish was well deserved.
A great reward after the disappointment of the Paris-Dakar for Neil. Great, really great.
We had our fair share of hassles this morning. The spare wheel kept on coming loose. We just battled to get into a rut because of the left-hand drive and, you know, sitting on the wrong side, navigating it. It sort of took a while to get into the slot, but after sort of about 10 o'clock, we started getting into a groove, but then the marking got so bad and there were no confirmation markers. You see on a route schedule, you got to turn left, but there's nothing to confirm that you are on the right route.
I've never driven cars as hard as today and concentrate to stay on the road. So we managed to caught up a hell of a lot of time. I think we were more than an hour behind, and I think we're now about 6 minutes behind. In 250 k's, we caught up that.
Yeah, it was pretty good considering I had a puncture in the first 25 k's. Having the puncture dropped me right to the back of the field, and I had to work my way right the way through again. So I'm pretty happy with that.
Again, like I said, reliability is obviously my main feature, and that's what I'm aiming at. The short wheelbase is obviously a treacherous thing to drive out there, and it's a hell of a thing to keep on the road. But then again, that's what it's all about, and the fun's there.
Newton Love and Colin Potter were determined to make it to the finish, and not even a flat tyre was going to prevent them from finishing first in their class. The number 500 KTM of Alfie Cox crossed the finish line in 5 hours, 24 minutes and 53 seconds to win overall, as well as the open bike division.
Yeah, today I think they sprung something new on us. We've never been to the areas we went to today, and it wasn't long straights with thick sand. It was just very tight, hard surface, but it was a good one, good race today. The marking was very good, and I think it's a different Baberspan to the other ones.
4 minutes behind Alfie, Errol Dalton came in, having to settle for second overall, but winning the 250cc class. After the retirement of Vickers van Deventer, Christo van der Merwe, the defending national quad champion, won the quad category after a consistent day's racing. Arriving at the finish just after Carl LaRue, who finished third overall in the bike section, Jeremy Davies on his Honda took a third position in the open class. More than 12 minutes behind, finished second on his Yamaha. But for most of the field, the drama was not yet over, and the long road to the finish was still ahead, even if it meant getting there on 3 wheels. Overall results then, Richard Carolyn not only winning the Class A for space frame vehicles, but also the race overall after times were calculated. In Class B, Love and Potter managed a 6-minute lead over Bond and Newton, whilst in Class C, Gerben and Labuschagne finished almost an hour and a half before Willy and Chantal Bahrain. Class D for commercial vehicles saw the Vodacom Pajero of Neil Woolrich and Paul Vermaak first. In the other commercial vehicle classes, Toyota Hilux came first in Class E and G, with the Nissan of Van der Merwe and Buerta taking the honours in Class F. In the 200cc bike section, a close finish between Van Niekerk and Farmer, with Errol Dalton a deserving winner of the 250cc division. In the open bikes division, Alfie Cox finished with a lead of over 6 minutes over Carl LaRue, and another 8 minutes further back was Jeremy Davies. Class K for 200 quads saw Costello 13 minutes ahead of de Villiers, whilst the open quads had Van der Merwe as the overall winner.
Congratulations to the organisers and competitors on a spectacular race.
And until the next event, the Sugar Bell 400 taking place in KwaZulu-Natal on May 2nd, it's goodbye from us. This programme brought to you by Toyota.